say at the outset, it's my first time speaking on this issue in the context of its movement through the committee stage and now the report stage. I did contribute in the second stage speech itself. I suppose at the outset, I mean, we amended the Constitution for the provision may be made by law for the regulation of termination of pregnancy. So it does point out that we are in this chamber doing that very bidding on behalf of the Irish people. So the amendments that are being tabled, most of them I would disapprove of in some shape or form. And I believe that we should stay central to what was published in the heads of bill in advance of the referendum, so that we would be consistent in interpreting the view of the Irish people, which I believe was very well informed, in view of the fact that we've been discussing this for a long time, in fact for several generations at this stage. So the idea that the public were ill-informed or didn't comprehend or were unsure of what they were being asked to vote on, I personally believe that they were very well informed and had been waiting for some time to amend the Constitution to allow us in here to legislate. And in doing that, I think we all have an onus to adjudicate each other's opinions and views, peruse the amendments and go through it in a process that gives justice to the views of the Irish people in how they expressed them in the recent referendum. So with that in mind, it was a very respectful debate in that context among the broader public. And I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice inside here if we descended beyond where we are now in terms of having proper, robust scrutiny of legislation itself. Having said all of that, I think it is important that we do look at the amendment that is before us, which effectively says no public money shall be provided by the Oireachtas for the provision of terminations except in the context of sections 10 and 11 of the bill. And really what you are proposing here, Deputy Nolan, is that we would now insert in law a means testing by fiat, by legislation effectively, that would ensure that it is only people who could afford to procure an abortion, which the Irish people have now accepted, needs to be available to women in certain cases, now a preserve of the rich. And in that context, I find that, you know, if we start to debate these particular issues in this particular tone, I think we are bringing the discourse to a level that I hope we wouldn't reach. And I don't say that lightly, because I respect everybody's view inside here and have consistently tried to take the politics out of it to get to where we are. But I do believe that at some stage you have to say that if we were to even continue around the discussions of this particular amendment and allow further passage through the parliamentary process, where we would be enshrining in our views here that some women are automatically deemed second class in terms of access to healthcare in this country. Because bear in mind, it is primarily around the provision of abortion services for in the first 12 weeks without cause, but for reason, whatever reason that may be. That is entirely a matter for the woman and for her medical team, not for us to interpret inside here. And beyond that, we have put extra provisions in place, which means only in the context of the life or the health or in the context of fatal fetal abnormalities. Now, I would find it very difficult for anybody to suggest that it is only the rich or those who can afford who will be able to access a termination in those contexts, when they may have very many reasons that they can no longer continue with the pregnancy. So I would just suggest that for us to move this particular debate in a way that does respect the views of the Irish people, that these type of amendments would be withdrawn so that we can go about passing the bill as more or less envisaged that we publish the heads of it in advance of the referendum itself. And just to put it in a context, it was October 2012 when Savita Halappanavar died, the 28th of October, as far as I can remember. And we had debates inside in this House. And it is quite amazing how outside the House people's views can be formed by what we say inside here. But what I found very uncomfortable at that time was some of the public discourse around the late Savita Halappanavar and what was said about that woman as, after she died in a Galway hospital. And it was distasteful to the point where I didn't think that people could descend so low. And the reason I say that is because I wanted to get on the Dáil record that I took several phone calls from people at that time, because I was spokesperson for the party on health, and what was said about Savita Halappanavar to me was absolutely shocking and appalling. From people who had medical backgrounds, from people who have licenses to practice in this state, and what they said to me was just beyond belief. And they were trying to pass dispersions on her character, on her good name, and on all the reasons why she sought a termination, when the only time she wanted to seek a termination was because she was dying, and unfortunately she is dead now. So I do think that when we are talking about the subject, we have to be very conscious of the many, many thousands of women across this country who have had to avail of that for whatever reason. People can judge, I will not. In regards to the costs, it is very difficult for me to put a cost on a woman having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get a plane to Birmingham or to Manchester for a termination of a pregnancy, again for whatever reason. But having listened to the people who had to go there because they were carrying a child with a fatal fetal abnormality and felt they could no longer continue with that pregnancy, well, certainly I think the state should be obligated at the very least to support that family in that decision. And I believe because it is a healthcare issue, because women make these choices for many reasons and varied reasons, but always will be within the law if we pass this particular proposal or bill, that the state should be at the very least obligated to provide healthcare to any woman from whatever financial background or for whatever reason she decides to terminate that pregnancy.
Deputy Kelleher.